Well, we're back.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Idiots. My name is Morris, and that's Brian. Each week, we take turns telling stories to each other and drag you along for the ride, and we throw in a curse word of the week at the end of each episode. Brian, how are you?
I'm doing great. I think our descent into fascism is proceeding as planned, unfortunately. Fuckers.
Yes.
Yeah, but welcome back. Thanks for listening again, folks. We appreciate it. Please check us out online. Go to dreamidiots.com. You can see current episodes, the whole back catalog of episodes. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. On the website, you can drop us a line, shoot us a story idea, and you can email us at dreamidiotspodcast@gmail if you want to just say hey. And thanks for tagging along.
Yes. And do we have any announcements? Because I've got one short one before we get started today.
I've got none.
Okay. Last night, I attended a Democratic political fundraiser rally type thing, and I got to meet a woman running for Congress in the 5th District down in El Paso County, which is Colorado Springs. And she has a chance to flip this seat for the first time in 40 years.
Wow.
Her name is Jessica Killin. That's Killin. If you're in the Colorado Springs area, look her up. She's got a tremendous record. She served as a paratrooper. She was a captain, U.S. Army paratrooper. She served in the private sector, and she was Secretary of Staff to Doug Imhoff at the White House, the first gentleman. Um, Tremendous to hear her speak. She was on a platform with Jason Crow, another congressman who has been outstanding in his service to the people of Colorado and to his country. He's one of the guys that was ready to go all out on January 6th when he was in the Capitol building,
Hmm.
trying to do his business as a congressman. He's great. He's also a veteran. And the two of them, we walked away feeling great about that night. I think she's got a real chance to flip that seat for a variety of reasons. And mainly is that there's been a huge influx of new, younger people into Colorado Springs and kind of breaking that stranglehold on the conservative um, tendencies of El Paso
Right.
County and Colorado Springs.
Right.
So,
Focus on the families down there. I know. Yeah. All those. Yeah.
yeah, Jessica Killin, and she made some very good arguments that the folks down there really aren't MAGA. Um, and one of the things she's doing is try to show them how what's going on with the administration today is not conservative in any way, shape, or form. There's nothing about states' rights. There's nothing about due process of law, and really trying to. I think she's going to be great, and I think she has a real shot at winning that seat. I think it's going to
Killer.
be a crucial seat. Yeah, she's great. Jessica Killin, Killin. Check her out.
Well, actually, when this goes live, I'll drop in a link to. I'll go online and find the link to her fundraising page or something. So,
Great, good. That would
just
be awesome.
check. So check if you're listening to this, check the show notes. You can find something about Jessica Killen. I the name rings a bell, but I'll have to do some research on her myself. So yeah, very cool.
Yes, very impressive speaker, and I think she's got some great ideas for Colorado County, for El Paso County, the state of Colorado, keeping Space Command here, and some other things that are just vital to Coloradans.
Awesome.
Are we ready for my story?
We go. I'm ready.
Okay, Brian, I'm going to tell you today about a fellow by the name of Korla Pandit. You ever heard that name?
Korla Pandit. No, no
Mhm.
idea.
According to Korla Pandit himself, he was born in New Delhi in 1921. His father was a government official, a high caste Brahmin, so he was of the upper class,
Hmm.
upper caste, upper class. His mother was a French opera singer, so he was of mixed race. He had a love of music from an early age, so much so that when he was 12, he was shipped off to England to study, where he focused on the piano.
Okay.
The music of Korla Pandit fits within the genre of easy listening, but it further falls within the subgenre of exotica. And I'm sure you've heard of exotica music. Are you familiar with exotica at
I'm
all?
not sure that I have. No.
Oh, okay. Exotica has several characteristics, but chiefly is it a Western interpretation of music from the East, Japan, China, or Persia, for example. Exotica also looked to South America for influences, but the greatest influence was probably Hawaii and Polynesia in terms of having an impact on this
Okay. All
subgenre.
right.
Some might call this cultural appropriation, which is fair,
All right.
because it was mainly white bands reinterpreting this music. Leaders of other bands, such as Les Baxter, Martin Denny, and Arthur Lyman, ushered in the soundtrack to the mid to late 50s Hawaiian obsession on the mainland. Hawaii was going to be made a state, and people were fascinated with the idea of the tropics and jungles and island life. Hawaiian shirts, mixed drinks, usually in tiki glasses and backyard luau's spread across suburban America. I'll give Arthur Lyman a bit of a pass here because he was actually born in Hawaii. He is a white Hawaiian, I believe, as opposed to a Haole, who is someone who comes there later. And of course, Mexican-born bandleader Esquivel also gained fame in the exotica movement. He probably falls more on the lounge side of things. Returning to the subject of her story, sometime in the late 1930s, Korla arrived in Los Angeles and picked up nightclub gigs there, specifically in Los Angeles and in Southern California generally. He was also hired as a musician for a radio show, Chandu the Magician, which I've never heard, but I'm guessing it's kind of along the lines of a Mandrake the Magician or
Right.
Carter the Great, that kind of stuff. Korla had always favored suits, and so he always wore suits when he performed, and he wore a jeweled turban on his head, a white turban with a jewel right in the center. So he now, no doubt, looked the part of someone, at least in a white Westerner eyes, who would be a musician for such a show. Okay, it just sounds exotic, Chandy the Magician. And we all know how important looks are for radio. In this regard, Korla was participating in a form of what Gachori Spivak termed strategic essentialism. Now, Spivak is an Indian post-colonial literary feminist critic who later found this term, strategic essentialism, that she had coined, becoming a bit problematic in its usage. It's a sin that I'm probably going to commit right here. I had to read Spivak a lot in graduate school. Spivak, Paulo Freire, Stuart Hall, a lot of these folks who were cultural critics. But she is considered to be one of the giants, one of the founders of the post-colonial literary movement, studying what happens when a group of peoples is colonized. Strategic essentialism is a means by which the members of a minority group bond together on a temporary basis and play into certain basic characteristics, such as skin color, gender, religion, for the purposes of finding space within a dominant culture. It's a temporary action. So I'm really not using this term correctly, but rather as a general approach to what shall become clearer in a moment. Korla Pandit looked and dressed the part of someone from India as viewed through Western eyes. Right? I mean, he was kind
Okay.
of playing the game.
Yeah, caricature a little bit, maybe.
Yes,
Right.
whatever some might call it a stereotype. Whatever the
Right.
case of his appearance, Korla Pandit came to the attention of producer Klaus Landberg, who gave him a new job in 1949. A new medium was on the rise, and from the late 40s to early 50s, TV sets were starting to pop up in households. Not many, right? Because television, like most mass communication hardware, goes through a certain phase first where the rich folks have it first and the technologically elite,
Right.
and then it slowly trickles down to the masses. The only one I can think of that was any exception to this is probably film, which was cheap from the beginning where everybody could go. Books were expensive when they first came about. Only the church owned them, for example. A form of television had been around since the late 1920s, but World War II saw a patent freeze on the U.S. and its development, and not much was done during the wartime years. But by 48, we're starting to see television stations spring up. Um, Now, Landsberg had Pandit in mind for a new program for this new medium. It would be a musical program. Pandit was instructed to play the piano or the organ, or sometimes both at the same time, with his right hand on the piano and his left on the Hammond B3. This daily show was broadcast on KTLA, one of the first big television stations in Los Angeles. It was 15 minutes long, and Pandit never once spoke on the show. He only gazed directly into the camera as he played. 15
Okay.
minutes, 15 minutes daily, right? Monday through Friday.
Uh,
Adventures in Music with Korla Pandit. And remember, TV shows then were 15 minutes long was not unusual, and the
right. Right.
broadcast day was very short, maybe 4 hours.
Right.
Um, Adventures in Music with Korla Pandit was not only an early hit for KTLA, but it also stands as the first all music television program, period, of any kind.
Oh wow.
So that's a pretty big deal. The show premiered in 1949 and ran for 900 daily episodes. He became part of the Hollywood set, counting among his acquaintances Bob Hope, Roy Rogers, and Errol Flynn. He landed a few movie roles and became involved with the Self-Realization Fellowship, and that was based out of the teachings of a guru whose name I will not attempt to pronounce, the yogi, but he struck up a friendship with that leader, and he was eventually asked to actually play at his funeral when he passed away. So that's a pretty big deal. Um, he he even Bryan, he even appeared in the Rose Bowl parade. That's how big he was.
All right.
In 1956, Korla decamped for San Francisco in KGO television. He eventually got to speak on his new television program there and discuss the role of spirituality in music, the psychology of the musician, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So people could hear his ideas as well as hear his music. By the mid 1960s, he had moved to Vancouver, Canada, with his wife and children, entering into semi retirement. He married a white woman named Beryl, so his kids were of mixed heritage as well.
Right.
And the move was sparked by his desire to keep his sons out of the Vietnam War, to which he was vehemently opposed, like a lot of Americans did. He performed occasionally in clubs and venues up and down the West Coast and generally faded out from the public eye as the decade continued. And it stayed that way for a long time until 1994, when he appeared in Tim Burton's 1994 film Ed Wood.
Oh, wow.
You ever
Okay.
see Ed Wood? You know, that's the
Yeah. I may have actually seen it in the theater, but
I
God,
know
that
I
was a long
did.
time ago.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Martin Landau won Best Supporting Actor
Right.
Oscar
Right.
for it
Yeah.
as
Right.
in his
Yeah.
role as Bela Lugosi, and it was about Ed Wood, one of the most notorious film directors of 1950s Hollywood. This appearance coincided with the resurgence of lounge and exotica music with a new generation, namely our generation, Generation X, who had missed it the first time around. His music came back into print for the first time in decades.
Oh, wow.
So you could get Korla Pay and his music all of a sudden. There were several lounge compilation series that had, you heard from a variety of folks. They were themed. There was one that was all about drinks, another that was about the space age, another that was about just congas. You know, I mean, it was really interesting. Um, After his death from heart failure in 1998, so he had a long run,
Right.
it came to light that Korla Pandit was in fact not born in New Delhi.
Hmm.
And
Jersey.
he was not East Indian.
uh,
His name wasn't even Korla Pandit. His name was Juan Rolando, and he was Mexican. But he could pass as Indian. He had played in Southern California under that name for about 2 years before adopting his Korla Pandit personality. Any
okay.
thoughts? Okay. But wait, Bryan, there's
Hmm.
more. He was not, in fact, born in Mexico, nor was he Mexican or Mexican American. His name wasn't Korla Pandit or Juan Rolando. His real and true name was
Che Guevara. No.
John Roland Red,
John Roller. Okay.
and his birthplace was St. Louis, Missouri. Like his Korla Pandit alter ego, Red started early with music, playing piano at the age of 3. As he grew up, he performed in dance halls and fell in love with jazz and the blues. In
Hmm.
his late teens, he had come to the decision to head west, that St. Louis didn't hold anything for him in terms of his career. So, like many other Americans during the Great Depression, he ended up in California. Once in Los Angeles, he sought membership in the local musicians union, only to find out that the organization did not accept African Americans. But
Oh,
because of his
wow.
light skin, he
He
could
could
pass
pass.
for a group that was accepted, namely Latinos. Latinos, like his new name, Juan Rolando. So he played their game using a variation of what Spivak would eventually term strategic essentialism. He used the white power structure's inability to detect or understand
Distinguish.
variations inherent in skin pigment of brown people to gain a little cultural space for himself. And that's how a light skinned African American man passed himself off as Mexican and then Indian for the rest of his life.
Oh, wow.
Now,
Hmm.
there's a corollary to this. A corollary to the Korla Pandit story was that of a Peruvian born singer, and you've probably heard of her, Ima Sumac.
Hmm.
You familiar with that name?
I know the name. Yeah.
Sumac possessed, from what has been told and from what I've listened to her music, possessed somewhere between a 4 and 5 octave vocal range, which is
Uh-huh.
incredibly, incredibly rare. She could hit male bass notes
Oh, wow.
and move
Okay.
all the way up to higher notes. She was born September 13th in Callao, Peru, and rose to fame in the early 1950s. She was a contemporary of Korla Pandit. Her music, she claimed, was derived from native Peruvian traditions. She was a huge star, and she worked a lot with Les Baxter, a guy I mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
Um, she sold out the Hollywood Bowl. She
Wow.
sold out Carnegie Hall. Ima Sumac was the first Latin American woman to debut on Broadway in a musical. She starred opposite Charlton Heston in the 1954 film Secret of the Incas. She later starred in a similar film with Robert Young. She toured the world. Bryan, at one point on her tour, Frank Sinatra opened for her. That's how big she was. But her fellow Peruvians were unimpressed. Ima was criticized, and Ima is spelled Y-M-A here, and sumac like poison oak.
Mm.
Ima was criticized for her representation of the indigenous peoples of Peru, claiming a heritage she was not entitled to in the minds of many. Some saw her as an urbanite. She was born in Cayo, a product of the city rather than the mountains that she claimed. Now, this didn't seem to discourage her as she continued to tour the world, with the exception of I the exception of Peru. She didn't she didn't she didn't focus on it.
Uh,
So what happened then, sometime in the 1950s, a rumor started to spread that she was not, in fact, Ima Sumac. And I was able to trace this to two different people. A guy named Whitney Bolton, who was a New York columnist,
mhm.
a name I was unfamiliar with. I've also read other sources that indicate he was jazz critic Leonard Feather. Do you recognize that name?
No.
If you've ever read liner notes, you're going to recognize certain names on jazz records: Ira Gittler, Orrin Keep News, Nat Hintoff, and Leonard Feather. He was a British jazz pianist, but he also wrote a column. And at some point, one of these two men, I don't know which, because I've got conflicting sources as to which one it actually was, made a point of noting that Ima Sumac, spelled backwards, was Amy Camus.
Amy. Okay.
Amy Camus. Now, this completely ignores the fact that when she first entered and chose the name Ima Sumac, that it was originally spelled I-M-M-A, and then the record exec said, "No, let's get rid of one of the M's and change that I to a Y because it looks more exotic." That's how she got the name Ima Sumac. And pretty soon there were rumors abounding that she was not, in fact, from Peru. She was instead Amy Camus from either Brooklyn or Cleveland,
Right, right.
that she was just an ordinary housewife. None of this was true. None of this was true. She actually was from Peru. She was native born, and she had it coming from both directions. On the one hand, she couldn't represent Peruvians for their authenticity. On the other hand, in the white consumerist world, well, she's clearly not indigenous because someone happened to make an offhand remark that her name spelled backwards spelled Amy Camus.
Right, right.
So I find it interesting that in this story, a a a light-skinned African American man, a man of color, who was born 1 year before Ima Sumac, could assume the different roles of being a Mexican American, being an Indian, and then have an extremely successful career. But here's a woman who is authentic to who she is, says from the very beginning that this is what I am,
Right, right.
and gets accused of not being that. For what reason? Because she's a woman? I mean, I don't know. And it leads to this concept of intersectionality, where you're not only dealing with gender, you're dealing with gender and race and religion and ethnicity and all these other things that make life very, very complicated. Intersectionality is a very complicated thing.
Mhm. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Um, Korla Pandit died, as I said, in October of 1998. And uh, Ima Sumac died about a decade later in November of 2008. And they died not that far apart, really. Pandit was living in Petaluma, California, and she was a bit down the coast and died in Los Angeles.
Mm.
And that's the strange story of Korla and Ima,
Yeah, Ema.
two people who lived during, it was either Todd Gitlin or Gary Willis or one of those guys who said that the true decade that changed America wasn't the 1960s, it was the 1950s.
Oh,
And that the 60s and everything else after was just a reaction to that. Um, but I do find it a very interesting test case of two people who were in very similar situations and found themselves in very different conditions.
right.
So that's it. That is Ima Sumac and Korla Pandit.
Yeah, super interesting. I don't know. For him though, being a creative type, but at your core having to maintain that level of disingenuity, I don't know, or something. Having to own, I don't know how it seems that'd be hard to do. Seems like maybe not, but
Well, it's not my place as a white guy to say, hey, you shouldn't appropriate
right. No, I'm not
other
judging it.
brown
Right,
people. You're right,
right.
brown people's
Mhm.
culture, because he was trying to play the white structuralist game, right? By getting
Right,
in and doing
exactly.
this,
Yeah, right.
and he clearly had the talent. Um,
Yeah,
I
so it
did
doesn't
listen.
it doesn't really I mean it's super interesting. It doesn't really matter. I don't think I'm not suggesting that he's, morally or ethically problematic here, but it just seems whenever you hear stories, there's obviously a boatload of true crime stories out there, but whenever someone you hear a story about some long held secret that's not revealed until after someone's dead. Just
Yeah,
my brother was actually, the person who I was raised with, who I thought was my brother, was actually my father. You hear those weird stories now and
yeah,
again. And no one finds out about it until after the grandparents have passed away. The burden of carrying even a small secret that you have to then soak into your DNA and maintain as the truth sounds like it'd be very cumbersome to have to do
and
that.
it's from what I've read and from what I looked at the various things, his family back in St. Louis knew what was going on.
Oh yeah.
And when they would show up to visit him after shows, he would just greet them with hello and then move on to his next thing.
Hello,
Um,
stranger.
right. And when you look at a picture of him, he looks like, quite frankly, if you've seen the artist sketches of what humankind is going to look like in 200 years,
Hmm.
he look darker
Sort of
skin tone.
androgynous.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like I mean, it is astonishing, and it's a matter of playing into those stereotypes and being able
Mm,
to wear a turban or some other accoutrement that would make you look like someone else. I mean, it's really astonishing.
right.
And it's also interesting that the look that he had, the suit with the turban, was predated a few years in the comic books by some magician characters like Sargon the Sorcerer and Ibis the Invincible, who were various mystical characters who kind of had that Eastern look, but they still wore a Western suit and a turban.
Hmm.
So I wonder if he got an influence from those comics as well, because those guys are around in the 40s. So he probably would have seen those images. And then there was the pulp hero Carter the Great. I've got a tintype of Carter the Great somewhere where Carter beats the devil and he's got four aces and the devil's holding four kings.
Uh,
The same look, the turban, the jewel, and the suit.
right.
So
Huh.
yeah, but it also doesn't hurt their case that Korla Pandit and Ima Sumac were almost also very attractive people. I mean, when
Oh
you see
yeah.
them, they are really just stunning looking people.
And
Uh,
pretty folks just get away with more shit. They
well,
just do.
it. I mean, it's. I think it's all part and parcel of what's what they're playing into is the mystic appeal of the East and the exotic appeal of South America, which, for the Peruvians was problematic
Right.
with Ima Sumac. Um, Sources for this were varied, actually. Break Down the Spell of Ima Sumac, that's a radio program, Latino USA from NPR.com, September 4th of, I believe I meant 2019 here. Stephen Thomas Erlewine, as ever, the redoubtable writer from the Ima Sumac biography section in allmusicguide.com. Uh, uh, Edwin Irwin, the editor of the 2000 book, The Mojo Collection, The Greatest Albums of All Time. They've got a nice rundown of what exotic is. That's Mojo Books out of Edinburgh. John Tator's book, the Kindle edition of the 2020 book, Los Angeles Television, the Museum of Broadcast Communication by Arcadia Publishing out of Charleston, North Carolina. John Turner's 2022 liner notes to the unfortunately titled long playing vinyl record Genie of the Keys, the best of Korla Pandit. You're messing up all kinds of you're doing it. You're doing it when you title it that, buddy. From Kraft Records out of Nashville and Richie Uttenberger's biographical section on Korla Pandit from allmusicguide.com. Their music is available on various platforms for you to listen to. It's quite the treat. I recommend the Mambo album, and then the best of Korla Panda is what I listened to when I was writing. So
Cool. Yeah, very cool. Excellent. Very interesting. Thank you.
you bet. And let's shift from that to our curse word of the week. What do you got for us, Brian?
So I know you to be over the course of your lifetime to be a fairly consistent sports fan. Obviously, you and I have the shared love of the Spurs. My allegiance for baseball is obviously the Red Sox. I know at least by marriage you have a Houston Astros affinity,
Hmm.
and then maybe a little Colorado Avalanche, and then you and I also, we grew up being Cowboys fans, although no longer.
No, for
And
many reasons.
for numerous reasons that aren't even worth going into. Due to my baseball allegiances, I of course, I'm a long term hater of the New York Yankees, and then over the last probably decade or so, that trend has expanded to also encompass the Los Angeles Dodgers. And so curse word this week comes to us from Urban Dictionary. The term is hate maxing, and that is just fervent in your DNA hatred for a person, an entity, an institution, or a sports team. So much so that you relish when bad things happen to them. It turns out there are lots of extra reasons to dislike the Los Angeles Dodgers. For some reason, they gave Kyle Tucker a 200 either 240 or 260 million dollar contract for a guy who's not worth that much money. But the other incredibly problematic thing with the Dodgers, Los Angeles, very heavily Latino, Latinx. Go back and you do some Googling and just look at the history of the Dodgers and when they built Dodger Stadium at
Hmm.
Chavez Ravine
Hmm.
and all the displacement of brown folks that happened back then. The current principal owner for the Dodgers is a guy named Mark Walter. He's the CEO of Guggenheim Partners. So Guggenheim Partners and the GEO Group. This is another one of those multi-billion-dollar conglomerates that have their fingers in numerous sports franchises, but also insurance and commercial real estate, and basically everything. But the GEO Group that's part of all this is a private prison corporation that operates ICE detention facilities.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So GEO's group current valuation on the Nasdaq or the stock exchange 3.39 billion dollars. And they're also working with Palantir, the worthless
Oh,
fucks that run that company. They paid in $30 million to help build what's called Immigration OS. And so Dodgers ownership, worthless scum. Fuck the Dodgers. In this upcoming baseball season, I believe pitchers and catchers report a week after this episode comes out. I believe that Tuesday. And I'm finding it hard to pay attention to almost any sports these days because of all the money involved in English Premier League. I can't really watch the NBA anymore because they don't let anyone play defense anymore, and so that's sort of impossible. Feels like the Dodgers have now ruined the MLB because the Dodgers are going to win 7 of the next 10 World Series. It feels like, and so maybe I have to just become an NFL fan from now. I don't know. It's hard to find anything to root for, but do engage in active and fervent hate maxing of the Dodgers if you can.
I think that's good advice. That's good and wise advice. Yeah, the whole
Making
shot.
making money off of putting, well, I mean, among others, children. I mean, the child's name is Liam, something other. The 5-year-old kid that had the bunny ears on. He was pressed up against a car in Minneapolis and is currently in a facility here in San
Hmm.
Antonio.
Oh
These
God, I didn't
worthless
know that.
fuckers. Oh yeah, they're worthless scum. So fuck ICE. Fully support all the protests happening, really nationwide. Some protests happening here in San Antonio, down at that facility, and fascism just continues. But they're gonna regret it.
Um, and that's so weird coming from the Dodgers with the history of Branch Rickey and Jackie Robinson, and once upon a time they were looked as the
Right.
leaders of integration in professional sports.
Yeah, and my franchise, the Red Sox, was the opposite because the Red Sox were the last ML team to have a last MLB team to have a black player, and have a very poor track record for
Hmm.
integration and just I mean Boston is not great on issues related to uh, racial equality, and the Dodgers have you know screwed themselves. I mean, again, this is all just money, money, money. So make money. Doesn't matter how. Doesn't matter whether it's creates any ethical or moral challenges. That's all they care about. And so this dude is scum. And the main face of the franchise is of course Magic Johnson, your favorite. Um, so
Worst broadcaster ever.
pretty sure that at the end of this game, the team with the most points is going to be the one who wins.
Uh, yeah, I have a relative who's always been a big Boston Celtics fan.
Hmm.
He's like, oh, I also like the Utah Jazz. It's like, yeah, I know why. I know why.
Lily White.
I know exactly why.
Right.
The funniest thing that ever happened is at one point, I believe when I was living in Salt Lake, there was maybe it was before. Anyway, there was one guy on the team who was actually LDS.
Hmm.
He was a black dude. The one guy on the team who was Mormon was black, which I thought was very interesting. Strange place, Utah. Um, anyway, folks, continue to fight the good fight. Um, do what you can. If you live down in the Springs again or know one who and he does, let him know about Jessica Killin running for Congress down there. She is going to be an infinite improvement over the MAGA tool that's in there now, who's just lockstep with Trump. And Colorado Springs is it's a place that's changing, and it's changing very rapidly. So wish her the best of luck. I'm proud to support her, and it was an honor to meet her and her crew last night.
Excellent. Yeah, we will link to her in the show notes. And thanks for tagging along with us yet again, folks. Check out dreamidiots.com. Please like, share, subscribe. Drop us a line if you get a chance. Give us a story idea or a curse word idea. That would be great. And thanks for listening.
Yes, indeed. Keep being good to each other.